Welcome GCC. It's great to see you. Hopefully you're going to be able to engage in this online experience. We hope you will truly enjoy what's going to happen next. Look out for the great word coming from a great preacher. It's going to be good. So please join us. Next up, we are going to be having some worship with Jill and family. Thank you.
Moment that I wake
Well, welcome GCC Church to another online experience. Hopefully you are doing well and you have been blessed so far. So today I want to continue this idea of thinking about holy ambition. Becky spoke about it last week and I really want to just overlay on that and just bring some more emphasis and just help us just to continue thinking in this mode. We just want to do this on one more occasion, thinking about holy ambition, because it's a big topic, isn't it? And it's got a certain emphasis to it, this idea of holy ambition, and it can cause certain thoughts and feelings for us. And I really want to just take us on a journey of just really sealing that in us further, this idea of holy ambition. So what was very good is that last week Becky hopefully and I know that she was able to just give a little bit of definition for holy ambition and lay it out for us, and that was really helpful. And so I don't wish to repeat that. I just want to look at certain aspects when we think about this whole idea of holy ambition. And a couple of the things when we look at the original language of holy ambition, the word holy and the word ambition. When we think about the original languages of Greek and Hebrew, there are a couple of things that come out here that I think are interesting. When we look at the word holy, it comes from in the Greek word hieros. And this word talks about divine power, or what was consecrated or separated to God. I think that's really interesting. I think that's really quite powerful as well. Divine power, and something which is separated and consecrated to God. And then in the word, in Hebrew, the word is kadosh. And it means to be set apart for a special purpose. And then when we think about this idea of ambition, again, this word ambition is a very strong word, and it has certain thoughts and feelings attached to it. And what I find interesting is when we look at the original languages here, in Greek and Hebrew, original languages of the Bible, it's the word in Greek, it's arithia. And this word is a desire to put oneself forward. Put oneself forward. Now in the Hebrew, I find it really interesting. It says this, and a very different emphasis here, I believe anyway, a different emphasis here is being given to this idea of ambition. And in the Hebrew, the word is ava. And the word means here to incline, to lean towards, or a desire for yourselves, to long for. So it's a desire for yourselves, or to long for, to incline. So there's less aggression there in that, isn't there? There's less kind of like, when we think about this word ambition, it can sound very aggressive, very self-centered. But in here, there's something of the heart in this, a desire for, to long for something. I think there's something very, very key in that when we think about this idea of ambition and God and how those things are connected for our journey of faith. Holy ambition. Hopefully this is something that inspires you and really motivates you, and also gives you that sense of real purpose. And that's what our heart is over these last 2 weeks, is to think about this idea that gives us a real grounding and a real sense of purpose when we think about holy ambition. Not that we are frightened by it or scared by it or overawed to think, whoa. Because these ideas, maybe for some of you, when we talk about this word holy and this word ambition, these are strong words. And they're words that maybe can evoke a reaction in us, a reaction that maybe is not helpful for us. But let me just hopefully ground this for you a little bit. Holy and ambition. These are great words. These are words that actually we can embrace, truly embrace. Because number one, remember, when it comes to the idea of holiness, it is God who makes you holy. It's not by our works or by our achievements or by our efforts. We know that through the process of salvation, it is God that makes us holy. And all we seek to do is to live up to that, to live by grace, through grace, to that calling to be holy. That we live through grace, and the grace that God has already provided us to enable us to be holy. So this is not something we strain towards or stress ourselves about. It's something that we seek towards, but know that actually we carry that through the grace of God. So don't worry about this idea of holy and be frightened by it. Don't be stressed by it. Know that alongside you and God, this holiness is something that you can walk with and you can be in. And number two, this word in thinking about ambition. And again, ambition, maybe for some of you, you think, well, do you know what? I'm an easygoing person. I just like to take things as I go. So I'm not ambitious. I don't think like that. And maybe for some of you who are very ambitious, you think, well, yeah, how do I maybe curb this and make this right? I'm a Christian. I've got to think right about this whole ambition thing. I don't want it to get out of hand. Well, think about this. Ambition is an issue of the heart. It's not necessarily just of the mind and of your personality. So if by personality you're not ambitious, if that's not how you're wired, this idea of ambition can seem very confronting and very overwhelming. It doesn't have to be. Remember, this is a connection to the heart and to God. So remember that it's your connection to God that will give you the right perspective on ambition and how that ambition will work itself out in your life. But it needs to be there. It needs to be there because I believe that at the heart of it there is a godliness that can come with ambition. It doesn't have to be something that gets out of hand. It doesn't have to be something that's far away from you and too extreme. It can be right there beside you in your relationship with God, well positioned to enable you to move forward and to achieve and to be all that God has called you to be. Now I want to think about, just very quickly, we're going to go through a tour of examples of holy ambition, just very quick tour of them, again to remind us of what that looks like when we see examples of it in the Bible, what that looks like for characters who can inspire us to see, oh, this is what it looks like. This is how that holy ambition looked for them. This is how it moved them. So I'm going to look at a few examples here very quickly. A few examples are going to move very quickly here. David versus Goliath. You know the story very well. If you don't, I recommend you read it. You can find it in 1 Samuel. And there are other it's a great story, great accounts that you can find there of David and Goliath. Now I'm going to pick out a particular verse here because David, when we look at David as a boy that he would have been at this time, he was motivated. He had a motivation, he had an ambition. And it was something that was frowned upon by those older than him and more senior, his older brothers. So who are you? Who are you to have this way about you? You're just a boy. In 1 Samuel 17, verse 26, it says this. David said this, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" In other words, who does he think he is? Let me tell him about himself. This boy, maybe 17 at most, maybe only even 15, is saying this. And I believe that came from an inner ambition, holy ambition that he had for the honor of God's name, for the honor of God's nation. He had that ambition. It drove him to action. And he couldn't contain it. He had to. And so he spoke out. And for others, he spoke out of turn. So how are you going to speak like that? You're just, just calm down. You're okay. You're just a shepherd boy. Just do your thing. But no, he said, who is this Philistine? How dare he? That holy ambition rose up in him. He had an earnest desire to achieve something. The honor of God in front of his nation. He wanted to see that. Next example, King Josiah. Now you'll see a pattern here that there's a pattern of youth, but it's not just about youth. But you see here, King Josiah was one of the youngest kings, and we see here that in 2 Kings chapter 22, verse 2, it says this. It says that he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord and walked in the ways of his father David, not turning aside to the left or to the right. Now, if you know the history of the chapters here in Kings, you'll often see that it starts off with he did right in the sight of the Lord, or it says that he did evil in the sight of the Lord. There's often this pattern. It goes back and forth, generationally, back and forth. Evil, good. Evil, righteous. Evil, righteous. Well, in this case, we see a great legacy for this king, Josiah, because I believe he had this holy ambition. And it says that he did right in the eyes of the Lord. So this is the record that's left of him. This is the record that's left of him. The legacy he has in the annals of history is that he did right in the eyes of the Lord. And further to that, in verse 24 of 2 Kings, chapter 22, it says, "Furthermore, Josiah got rid of the mediums and the spiritualists and the household gods and the idols and all the other detestable things seen in Judah and Jerusalem. This he did to fulfill the requirements of the law written in the book that Hilkiah the priest had discovered in the temple of the Lord." He was wanting to restore the honor and the holiness of the nation. That things had crept in, other things had crept in, other ideas or idols and other practices had crept in, and he wanted to clean house. And so his holy ambition was to clean house, was to say, no, things need to be right, things need to be back in order for the honor of God. I need to sort this. And so he did. We see this. He sorted this. He began to just get rid of that which shouldn't be there. There's something of that for us, isn't there, in a personal sense, even for us as a church. Well, what do we need to get rid of? What attitudes, what mindsets, what things in our lives do we need to clear out so that holy ambition can be truly, truly uninterrupted, unaffected, unsuppressed in us? What is affecting those things in our lives? What is that for you that you need to get rid of? What is it for me that I need to get rid of? Verse 25, it continues. Neither before nor after Josiah was there a king like him who turned to the Lord as he did. See, such a legacy, that holy ambition gave such a legacy for him, with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his strength, in accordance with the law of Moses. So his legacy was one that no one before or since, it says here, gave their life and committed their way to holy ambition in the way that Josiah did. That's an incredible legacy. Absolutely amazing. And it's only a short account here we see of his life, but such was the impact. Such was the legacy. Continuing on, another example, Paul the Apostle for me is one of my favourite characters, and for me a great example of holy ambition. Somebody so passionate and driven for God, for the right cause. 1 Corinthians 2 verse 2, you know it well. He says, "For I resolved to know nothing while I was with you except Jesus Christ and him crucified." So 1 Corinthians 2 verse 2. I resolved, I committed, I decided that I would know nothing while I was with you except. Don't talk to me about anything else. I've got no hearing, no vision for anything else but Jesus Christ and him crucified. Holy ambition. It took him, it gripped him, and he expressed it when he wrote it in those ways. He expressed this idea of this ambition. And what greater example do we have than Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ. It said, John 3 verse 16, for God so loved the world, holy ambition, that he gave his only son. That Jesus gave his only life, his life, because of that holy ambition of the salvation of mankind. Hebrews 12 verse 2 tells us this, another example. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy or for the holy ambition set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So for his holy ambition, he was driven by the biggest cause, the greatest cause there could ever be. He was driven by that. And it says that we should fix our eyes on this Jesus. Let us fix our eyes on him, because he's a great example of holy ambition. Luke chapter 2, verse 49 says this, "Why are you searching for me?" he asked. "I must be about my Father's business." This is Jesus as a young boy, and he'd gone somewhere, and people are looking for him. Where's he gone? If you read the account for yourself. And when they found him, his question was, what's the problem? I have to be about my Father's business. Now you need to understand the context here, that as a boy he said this. It wasn't as a big grown adult, a big man, as Jesus that we know, as Jesus the great leader, the great spiritual leader. It wasn't. This was just as a boy. So it was, who are you to say such a thing? But there was something in him, rising in him, of holy ambition, I believe, that was leading to where he was going to get to, that was already speaking. Even as a boy, it was speaking. It was speaking out from him, and he had to express it. He said, I must be about my Father's business. Something in him just spoke up, I believe. The Spirit of God in him, that holy ambition in him just spoke up for a moment there. And then maybe it just went down, and he humbled himself and said, oh, sorry, I've got to come and go back to where I should be. But for a moment he spoke up. And I believe that was the holy ambition that was rising in him. Luke 4 verses 16 to 17. It says, he went to Nazareth where he had been brought up. So this is Jesus now, we know. And on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. And he stood up to read. The scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written. This is just a magnificent moment in the Bible, I believe. Absolutely fantastic. This is Jesus almost announcing himself to the world. He's coming into that place of beginning to announce himself and who he is. And he says this. It says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour. You have to understand the significance of this moment. Jesus was declaring his holy ambition and reflecting on a scripture that would have been known to those listening, because it was opened up from an ancient book. It says that the scroll was unrolled. So this is something that was a record that was kept, and it was unrolled, and he read something and he ascribed it to himself. It said, this is me. Now this is from Isaiah that was years before. And he's reading it now, saying, this is me. Now, this would have been incredible. This is saying, this is my holy ambition. This is my focus. Now, people would have known exactly where he was reading from, Isaiah. And they would have known exactly what it meant. And him getting up in front and doing that would have been like, really? Because he wasn't Jesus, the great Messiah at this point. He was just, well, a local boy. It's like, what are you saying? What are you saying? Really? You're going to say this about yourself? Because this would have been like him getting up, and maybe me getting up in front of all of you, and declaring I'm going to be the next Bill Gates when I've only just started using a computer. That's what it would have been like in that context. Jesus getting up and saying this would have been, well, who are you? What have you done? And me turning around, especially me, people who know me will know that I can work a computer, but I'm certainly not a whiz at all. I do what's necessary. And if I just started working a computer, just started working a laptop, and then I came up and declared to you I was going to be the next Bill Gates or the next Steve Jobs, like, what? Really? Come on. Let's be realistic now. And this is what Jesus did. He declared his holy ambition, and it seems so far removed from where he was. For some of you, you're going to have these moments where you're going to be speaking in situations, you're going to speak up and say something, and it's going to be like, really? I've had those moments in the past. And even in more recent times, you have those moments, you say these things, and it seems out of context. Is it, what, really? Because it's the holy ambition in you speaking out. And you say things about your life and about what you want to do and about who you want to be. And there are those who are not going to understand. There are those who are not going to understand. There are those who are even going to maybe object. Let me just encourage you. Continue to pursue that holy ambition and speak it out at times. Encourage others with it. Be motivated. Find others who also have that holy ambition that you can walk alongside and that can truly fire you and sharpen you. Holy ambition. So how does this relate to us as a church? How do we position ourselves as a church when it comes to this idea of holy ambition? I believe it is integral to us as a church. Our desire and our holy ambition as a church should be this, that we become greater than we are. So passionate about us moving forward and breaking boundaries and increasing. That has to be our goal. That has to, not just that we are who we are and let's just be us. And no. We have to break out. That we will be greater than the sum of our parts. That we will grow in reputation and influence and effectiveness in our environment. That this is what we can do. This is the direction we want to go in. That people would know God through us, through our lives, through who we are as a church. So how do we as a church pursue our holy ambition? What does that look like in broad terms? I believe it looks like these things. It looks like, number one, that we pursue a greater influence, as I spoke about before, and a greater stake in our community. We find ways of doing that. We look at ways, and part of that is about who we are. A big chunk of that is about who we are in the connection to the people that are around us as a church. Number two, that we raise up others to be carriers of that vision, that we encourage each other and we sharpen each other and we raise up others increasingly that will become part of that vision for us to become more of an influence, to expand out and to increase. That's one of the goals. We raise each other up, we raise others up, and we say, yes, let's move forward with this holy ambition. This is now your holy ambition. Walk with me in this. Number three, that we seek to have more of God's presence and inspiration in what we do. And key ingredient, that we need to have God's ambition. We need to have God's holy ambition, but we need the ingredients, the Holy Spirit. We need his word, we need his direction, we need his inspiration to enable us to truly follow and pursue his holy ambition. Without that, it's empty, and we will be empty and we will not be effective. We need to have that in our lives. So number one, we pursue greater influence and a greater stake in our environments that are around us for the influence of God. We raise up others to be carriers of the vision, to own that holy ambition, and we seek to have more of God's presence and inspiration in what we do. So think about this. What does the church exist for? What do we exist for? To represent the greatness of God and who God is. To be carriers of the gospel, of his message, to whoever will receive it. We are God's ultimate vehicle for influence. Us, the church, that's us. So our holy ambition should be to be an influence for God. See, the Bible tells us we've been raised up to display the manifold or the many signs of wisdom and aspects of wisdom of God. So we want to show that God is able to do this and lead in this and affect this and change that. That's what we want to show. But we show that through who we are. See, if we live foolish or powerless or aimless, directionless lives, that's not going to honour God. So join with God and get your holy ambition. Help him to, if maybe you have been aimless, maybe you have been directionless, allow God to give you your holy ambition, to give you a sense of purpose, to give you a sense of direction. As a church, we want to be more than we are. We're meant to be more than the sum total of our parts. And so we must push towards that. But that journey will be made up of all of your individual journeys of grasping that holy ambition in him. Let's be encouraged, church, that holy ambition is not something that we need to be intimidated by. It's not something that's separate from us. You think, well, that's not really me. I'm not really that good a Christian. I mean, no. You get alongside God. Allow God to invest in you and seed in you what that means for you, what that looks like, because it will mean something and it will look different in different lives. But ultimately, it's about the same goal, purpose, destiny, and truly reaching out for God and affecting change in the environments around us for God, that we truly represent him. Let's be great. Let's excel. Let's spread out to the left and to the right. And let's claim ground for God. Let's have that ambition. Claim ground in the lives of others, that God would truly be able to make a home in other families, in lives, and truly see change. Paul the Apostle said this, I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto salvation. So we carry that message in our holy ambition, that we are not ashamed of the gospel, that we are confident in it, that we embrace it and we walk with it confidently. So my prayer is that even as we as a church continue to move forward and that we continue to prosper, that you would prosper in your lives, and that we as a church continue to have a holy ambition, that you in your lives would have a holy ambition, and that these two things would be so strongly connected that we would move forward powerfully as a church. Holy ambition. It's what God carries and what God wants to deposit and has deposited in our lives. So let's walk with it confidently. Let's increase it. Let's enable God to work on it and help us to be all that we can be. All that we can be. So I just want to encourage you. Hopefully you've been inspired over these last couple of weeks thinking about this idea of holy ambition. We believe that there is a thread that needs to run through our lives if we're truly going to move forward and increase, you as an individual, you as families, we as a church ultimately, that we will truly represent God in this holy ambition. And it will just take us and carry us forward. We would not be ashamed, we would be confident, that we would incline ourselves, it talks about here, that we would have a desire and long for the things of God and the goals and the ambitions that God has. And we just commend that word to you. I pray that you have truly been encouraged and inspired, and we will hope to see you again soon, very soon. God bless.